There were moments during the Cold War when the world came closer to nuclear war than anyone realized. Not during battles, not during invasions, but in seconds, in decisions made under pressure, in signals that were misunderstood, or almost were, because once a nuclear exchange began, there would be no way to stop it, no second chance, no correction, only escalation. And yet, time after time, the world came right to that edge, closer than most people ever knew. This is a story of how close the world came to nuclear war, and the moments that could have changed history forever. At the height of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union existed in a constant state of tension. Both possessed nuclear arsenals capable of destroying entire cities, entire regions, entire civilizations, weapons that could be launched within minutes, delivered across continents with devastating precision. The balance between them wasn't built on trust. It was built on deterrence, the understanding that if one side attacked, the other would respond, and that response would be just as destructive. This concept, mutually assured destruction, created a fragile stability because it prevented deliberate conflict, but it did not eliminate risk. Because the greatest danger wasn't always intentional. It was accidental, a false signal, a misinterpreted action, a system that indicated something that wasn't actually happening. And in a world where decisions had to be made quickly, there was very little time to verify. That was the reality of nuclear strategy. Early warning systems scanned for missile launches. Radar networks monitored the skies. Command centers stood ready to respond, all designed to detect an attack and initiate a response. But those systems were not perfect. They relied on data, signals, interpretation, and sometimes that interpretation could be wrong. For the United States, this created a constant challenge. How do you respond fast enough to survive without responding so fast that you make a mistake? Because hesitation could mean destruction, but acting on false information could trigger the very war you were trying to avoid. That balance between speed and certainty defined the Cold War, and it created moments where the outcome depended not on technology, but on judgment, because even the most advanced systems still required human decisions. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the most dangerous moments were the ones no one ever saw, consider subscribing, because what would happen next would reveal just how fragile that balance really was. Because sometimes the world didn't step back from the edge. It stopped right on it. One of those moments began not with an explosion, but with a signal, a radar return, a pattern on a screen that suggested something had been launched. Inside the command center, everything changed instantly. Conversations stopped. Operators focused. Because what they were seeing could mean only one thing: incoming missiles. And if that was true, the timeline had already begun. Minutes. That was all the time there would be to confirm, to decide, to respond. Data began to flow through the system. Radar stations tracking the object, computers calculating trajectories, estimating origin points, projecting impact zones. Every piece of information moving toward a conclusion. This was not a drill. This was not theoretical. This was real time. And yet, something didn't feel right. The number of detected objects was limited. The pattern didn't match a full-scale attack. But in that moment, there was no certainty, only probability. And probability, in a nuclear scenario, was enough to trigger action. Protocols existed for exactly the situation. If a launch was confirmed, retaliation would follow, because waiting too long could mean losing the ability to respond at all. That was a logic. Cold, precise, unforgiving. But logic depends on accuracy, and accuracy depends on interpretation. Inside the system, analysts began questioning the data, looking for inconsistencies, comparing signals, checking for anomalies, because not every detection was a missile. Some could be reflections, interference, unusual environmental conditions, rare but possible. At the same time, pressure increased. Every second that passed without a decision narrowed the window, because if the attack was real, delay would be catastrophic. But if it wasn't, action would be irreversible. That was a dilemma. and it wasn't unique. Similar moments occurred more than once during the Cold War. Different systems, different locations, but the same tension. A signal that suggested something had happened, and the need to determine whether it was true. In some cases, early warning systems detected what appeared to be incoming missiles, only for further analysis to reveal a false alarm. In others, radar reflections created patterns that resembled launch trajectories, signals that looked real until they were examined more closely. Each time, the situation followed the same pattern: detection, uncertainty, decision, and in each case, the outcome depended on the people interpreting the data. Because the system could identify, but it could not decide, that responsibility remained human. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where entire outcomes depended on moments of judgment under pressure, consider subscribing, because what these incidents revealed was not just the power of the system, it was its vulnerability. Because even when everything worked as designed, the difference between war and peace could come down to a single interpretation. And in those moments, there was no margin for error. One of the most dangerous moments came when the system did exactly what it was designed to do. It detected a launch, not a large-scale attack, not dozens of missiles, but a small number, enough to be real, enough to matter. Inside the command structure, the alert moved quickly from detection to confirmation protocols to decision-making channels, everything operating within a timeline measured in minutes. The data suggested that missiles had been launched, that they were on their way, that impact was possible. But there was a problem. The pattern didn't make strategic sense. A limited launch was unusual, not consistent with a full nuclear strike, and that created hesitation, because in a real attack, the expectation was overwhelming force. A first strike designed to eliminate the ability to respond. This didn't look like that, but uncertainty remained. Because strategy can change, assumptions can be wrong, and in that moment, there was no time to fully understand intent, only to react to possibility. The officer responsible for evaluating the situation faced an impossible decision: trust the system or question it, because the system was designed to detect, to calculate, to provide data, but it could not determine context. It could not understand strategy. It could not recognize anomalies beyond its programming. That required judgment, human judgment, the kind that operates under pressure, with incomplete information and consequences that cannot be reversed. The data continued to update, tracking the objects, refining projections, but still something didn't align. No additional launches, no supporting indicators, no confirmation from other systems, just a signal that suggested something was happening, and nothing else. That absence of confirmation became critical, because in a real attack, there would be multiple layers of detection, different systems confirming the same event. Here, there was only one. That detail changed everything, because it introduced doubt, and doubt, in that moment, was the only thing preventing escalation. The decision was made to wait, to continue analyzing, to not initiate a response. It was a risk, because if the signal had been correct, delay would have reduced the ability to respond effectively. But if it was wrong, that delay would prevent catastrophe. Seconds passed, then minutes. No impacts, no additional detections, no escalation. The conclusion became clear. It was a false alarm. Something within the system had created a signal that looked real, but wasn't. The world had come close, not through intention, but through misinterpretation. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where most critical decisions were made in silence under pressure, consider subscribing, because what these moments revealed was not just the power of nuclear systems. It was how fragile the balance truly was. Because even when everything worked, it could still go wrong. And when it did, there was only one thing standing between peace and catastrophe: the decision to question what seemed certain. In the end, nuclear war did not begin. Not because the systems were perfect, not because the risks disappeared, but because in those critical moments, someone chose not to act too quickly. Because throughout the Cold War, The danger was never just the weapons. It was the speed, the requirement to decide within minutes, to interpret signals that could mean everything or nothing, and to act on those signals before there was time to be completely certain. That was the reality of deterrence, a system designed to prevent war by preparing for it at all times. And within that system, there were moments where everything aligned toward escalation, signals that looked real, data that appeared credible, timelines that forced immediate action, moments where the logic of the system pointed in one direction, but doubt pointed in another. And in those moments, doubt became the most important factor, because doubt created hesitation, and hesitation created time. Time to verify, time to question, time to avoid a mistake that could never be undone. For the United States, this experience reinforced something critical, that technological superiority alone was not enough. Advanced radar, early warning systems, missile detection networks, all of it was essential, but none of it replaced judgment, because systems could detect, they could calculate, they could process information faster than any human. But they could not understand context. They could not question themselves. That responsibility remained human, and that realization shaped how the system evolved. More safeguards, more cross-checks, multiple layers of verification, because reducing uncertainty became just as important as responding quickly. At the same time, these moments revealed something about the nature of the Cold War itself, that it was not just a contest of power, but of control. Control over information, control over decisions, control over escalation. Because once escalation began, control would be lost, and the consequences would extend far beyond any battlefield. That is why these near misses mattered, not because they resulted in action, but because they did not. Because each one represented a moment where the system could have failed, but didn't, where a decision could have led to catastrophe, but didn't. And those moments, unseen by the public, quietly shaped the outcome of the Cold War. They reinforce caution, they expose weaknesses, they force improvements, and they reminded those in control that the margin for error was almost non-existent. That is a legacy of how close the world came to nuclear war, not a single event, but a series of moments where everything depended on interpretation, on restraint, on the ability to question what seemed certain. Because in a system built for speed, the most important decision was sometimes to wait. For more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because some of the most important moments in history are not the ones that happened, but the ones that almost did.